It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmic Voice. Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmic Voice. This is Season 4, Episode 5. I am here with my co-host and Mr. Wellbeing himself, Chris Natalini.
What is going on?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Chris. You sound good this week. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling better. Hopefully I sound better. Still have a little raspiness, a little on the deep side, but I'm good, man. Everything is working properly now, so I'm good.
Good.
I feel
good.
I'm doing okay, man. Doing okay. Apparently, there was a stomach bug going around, and hopefully, it's gone.
Well, you said that you were having a lot of projectile vomiting, so hopefully, it came out in that.
Well, yes. There's a lot of that for sure.
There is. They could probably projectile vomiting. There's a visual. There is a visual.
Hugging the bowl.
No, I was going to say, I actually had a gentleman tell me that he would begin to projectile vomit anytime he passed the McDonald's. Like whether he was driving or walking. I'm like, wow. Man, I'd hate to be in the car with you.
I was going to say, he must be doing that a lot because there's a lot of McDonald's around.
I mean, depending on if he was driving in Philly, every block has one.
Every block has one.
I mean, it's crazy. That windshield must be a mess.
It's the worst, man. It is the worst thing in the world. It's awful. It's just not one of my favorite things at all.
No, I'm not a big fan of it either. I do all I can not to do it.
I start to panic and sweat when I feel like I'm going to. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And then I go, I got to do it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of being at the dentist, but I think I would opt going to the dentist over if I could just.
Oh, yeah.
For
sure.
My body goes in and it usually comes out my nose. I know this is terrible stuff to talk about, but
I hope people don't listen to this in the morning.
Yeah, it's just craziness. I know the show usually drops between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., so I don't know if we get any early risers here on the East Coast, but. I don't know.
But I am good, man. I'm good. I'm feeling all right.
Fantastic. So
yes,
we're back in action. Again,
we are, man.
Season 4, Episode 5. And what we're going to talk about tonight is what constitutes being a professional. What defines you as being a professional artist? What constitutes being a professional? What defines you as being a professional artist? What do you think, buddy? What defines you as being a professional artist? Or what do you constitute professional being?
I think that, well, for me, constituting being a professional is great communication, understanding, willing to do what has to be done, for the show and not just think about yourself, thinking about the club, their venue, I should say, the promoter, the other bands, your band. Unfortunately, we have in this society today, it's always kind of been like this in our scene. Unfortunately, I see it more now. It's a very me society, right? Like it's a, worry about me and my band, and professionalism has to go on beyond that. Like, you have to consider other people, you have to consider other things, and whether that other people is the sound guys or whether it's the people running the show or it's the bar itself. I mean, for me anyway, I think that, and this is going to sound so weird when I say this, but I really just think about being a nice person. I mean, that right there just, defines being a professional. For me, it's just being a nice person. It's about thinking not always about you. Obviously, your band or you as an artist, if you're a solo artist, you are obviously looking out for number one, but you can't always. You have to look at a bigger picture. You have to think about the other bands and how you conduct business. First and foremost, I think communication is one of the biggest things, whether it's getting back to the people or person, whether it's email, text message, phone call. Not to break down the fourth wall, I just had a situation this past couple days. I was helping some friends get a place to rehearse, playing phone tag with the guy and just trying to stay on top of it, just going, calling and saying, hey, sorry, I missed your call. This is what I was doing. You can call me here again. I'll be by the phone X amount of time. And, and we were just kind of playing phone tag, but we eventually called up. And when we finally did kind of meet eye to eye, we had a very nice conversation. And I've already gained his respect by constantly communicating and being open and honest about what I am looking for. That goes a long way. I know there's a club, a bar that I frequent with my band in Delaware, and the owner is a super nice guy, and he loves, usually when you do a show at his place, he'll ask who's ever putting the show together or him. He'll get one member of each band in like a big Facebook message where everybody can communicate, and he's always in that group, and he will tell you, this is what I expect, this is what I want. And communication, I think, is a huge thing, and to be nice and respectful of the other bands and respectful of your time. If you're playing from 9:15 to 9:45, you play 9:15 to 9:45. If that show's running late, then you still play your half hour, unless you are the cause of holding the show up. You and I have talked about that before in other shows about, watching your stage time and being respectful to the other bands. To me, I think being professional is pretty much self-explanatory, but obviously there's people that don't realize the problems that they cause if you're not communicating or if you're not working with the show. Anything to add, Mick? What do you think?
There's no two ways about it. I mean, communication is definitely key. Communication just in everyday life is important, right?
Well, yeah.
And we struggle as a people, as a nation, as a world, whatever. We do struggle with communication. Communication is very difficult. And we have so many channels of communication, it's not uncommon for things to get misconstrued, to get confusing, to get blown out of proportion. With the no contact type of, even prior to the pandemic, we were falling into a no contact world. We could text and email and message, and we never really had to be in the same room with anyone that we would talk to. What could be written in text could be, misunderstood. You're meaning one thing, somebody takes it a different way. It all depends, so communication is definitely key. I agree with you. Like, it starts with good manners, in my opinion, right? So you don't even have to be, you don't have to carry bachelors and masters and doctors and all lawyers and undertakers and all that. Have good manners, right? Be polite. That's kind of how you start interacting with people the best that you can, especially people you don't know. In a lot of cases, in a band situation, artist situation, you're meeting people for the first time. Sometimes, at the show is the first time you actually put a face to a name, or a voice to a text or an email, or the person you were talking to isn't the person that's going to be there at the show. I mean, so there's all this different stuff. So if you're going in with a chip on your shoulder right out of the gate, that's going to be hard, right? Sometimes err on the side of politeness, good manners, and you'd be surprised, though you may not know everything, and it may seem awkward a little bit, especially because there is a tendency for humans to want to be at the top of their game all the time. And taking that position of, like, I don't know, or maybe I'm second fiddle here, is tough for a lot of people. And it can get in the way. So then they do the opposite, and they come in guns a-blazing, chests sprawled out, you know what I mean? Here's where, where I'm coming from. But that may not be the best route all the time, right? At least not in my opinion and from my experience. But I really do believe that it does start with good manners, and good manners leads itself, as you were saying, to good communication, because you're not leaving things to get misconstrued so that you have misunderstandings, especially if you're, like, as you were saying, the one venue that you frequent, and this happens a lot. It should happen more, and it would probably get rid of a lot of that, night of show craziness that seems to happen when you got 5 bands going on. Oh, nobody knew this, or they didn't know that, or where am I supposed to put this? I mean, because there are some venues, I mean, I'm going to admit that you'll go in and they're completely oblivious about what's going on.
Yes.
They've either used They either use someone who's associated with the venue to book the show but's not there, or they use a third-party booking who's not there, and they just fill the night, and you're like, whatever. And then the sound guy comes in and doesn't know the band order, doesn't even know what kind of bands are playing, set times, all this. It's just unknown. But when a venue's owner or stage manager or someone is taking the time to put all that stuff together, get the bands together, that doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to go smooth still. I mean, keep that in mind. But you're giving opportunity to get as much information as you possibly can before that. I mean, really, look, we want everything to be streamlined, right? These guys that are running the venues, running the clubs, they got about 100 things going on. And worrying about whether all the bands are there when they should be, because, again, in most cases, we're adults, and we're supposed to be working, right? We're working. Right. This isn't a chance for bands to party at some venue. If that's what you want to do, go rent the local firehouse or the Knights of Columbus place or something, the VFW, and then throw a party with you and your friends and you play, and it doesn't matter. But this is a place of business, and they're bringing you in as part of that business, at least for the evening, right? Yeah. The entertainment part. So, I would say that if you do have a booking agent or a venue or someone that's connecting all those dots, I'd say that, you should perk up, pay attention, and that's your opportunity to ask questions. Not to say that you can't ask questions the night of the show. Of course not. But questions, if you can eliminate a lot of them beforehand, that's great. If you're new to it, you're going to have to ask questions. There's just no two ways about it, because every venue's a little different. There's some commonality among how this goes. Once you do several hundred, it's like old hat. Yeah. But every so often, you'll run into something like, wow, I've never seen that. I've never seen that. And you'd be surprised. And they do different things on the West Coast than they do on the East Coast and Midwest. And so you have to be prepared for that.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
Some other things that I look at about being professional, as soon as someone says professional, it used to be you're only a professional if you're paid. Okay. Now, anybody that's been anybody in the music biz knows that doesn't always happen here. Yeah. In this business, right? A lot of us are doing this because it's part of who we are, what we do, and we want to continue it. Some of us are connected to the scene, some of us are connected to the music, some of us have a small following. Whatever the case may be, you have a connection with a venue. It makes it all worth doing what we're doing. But I think in today's market, some people still hold true to the old thing that you're only a professional if you're paid for it. So I've met plenty of guys that aren't paid the same amount as Nicky Sixx and play way better than him. So does that constitute one or the other? I don't know. But in my opinion, professional doesn't mean you have to be the best. And a lot of these guys, they take on a persona that they are the best, and because of that, they are professional. Well, sometimes I think that creates some tension if people want to work with you. And as you said, this is a business, right? You're representing yourself, your music, your brand, and you're dealing with other bands who are doing the same, and a venue and a sound person, and that's a business to all those people as well. So I think not worrying about whether you're the best or not, but doing the best you can with what you have, I think that constitutes more so being a professional than worrying about if you are or aren't the best. Do you know what I mean? That almost seems like a futile train of thought and wasted energy that could be put someplace else. And again, that's just me. I would say sometimes that mentality has more to do with ego or cockiness. Either you're compensating for something or that's just the kind of person that you are, than to allow yourself the opportunity, and this is a new buzzword now, a teaching moment. This could be a learning moment. Instead of teaching somebody else how much of a D-bag you possibly can be, maybe you utilize it as a learning moment to better your skills, better your communication, your interaction, how you negotiate or compromise. You can look at it any way you want. Yeah. And I think what that does is creates a level of confidence that emulates what professionalism is. And again, confidence is not the same thing as being egotistical or cockiness, or, it's just different words to relatively the same thing. But a confidence is you feel good in what it is that you're doing, whatever level that is, and you can get things done, accomplished from there. And that there's always room to grow, which then leads me to a professional never stops learning. And this business keeps changing. I mean, just in the last 2 years, it just changed again.
Yeah.
In another 2 years, it's going to change again. What the big time guys are doing has changed in the last 10 years. Guys are selling off their catalogs now because they're going to make more money. I mean, they're running the end of their time, right? Their life.
Yeah.
Right? And not to sound morbid, but they'll make more money selling that catalog than they will going out there and trying to schlock albums or streams and downloads, and some cases maybe even touring. Because some of these guys are getting to an age where it's like, do we really want to keep going the way that we're doing? I don't know. You know, some people go, listen, we've done all this. Let's go out with a bang. And like I mentioned it before, it's a financial legacy that if you want to carry on. Def Leppard sold a little bit more of their catalog again, and you're starting to hear them on commercials.
Yep.
You know what I mean? One hand washes the other. Yes, they're paid for it. Those companies, those publishing companies that are getting that control of that catalog, they're going to get the stuff out there. They're going to make good on that investment. So you're going to start hearing it. Something that I guess we all can think of. I mean, maybe someday people want to buy my catalog, use it as, the things to level out wobbly tables at a pizzeria or something. So that's all right. Listen,
I wonder where you were going with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it in any way, shape, or form at that point, right?
Obviously, while we were sitting here, I was looking up the definition of professional. Professional as an adjective is relating to or belonging to a profession, and using it as a noun, a person engaged or qualified in a profession. And then in both situations, definition number 2 is, for a paid occupation. But I think, I never really looked at it like that. Like when somebody said, oh, those guys are so professional, I didn't really look at it as being a profession, right? Like getting paid. I looked at it as we did something good. You know what I mean? Like we handled ourselves like, human beings where, we came in there, we did what we were asked to do. There's always ebbs and flows, man. Some things go wrong, some things go right. And it really it defines you as a band and as a person to handle it as it comes. And if you handle it correctly, people consider you a professional. And I think that's hugely important in the scene, that if you're professional, and I am a true believer that if you are professional, I think we've said this before, then great things will happen to you as an artist or, as your band, because word spreads, man. People talk, other bands talk. And, when you're professional and when you do things that are really cool, or just being cool, no matter what is thrown your way, it goes a long way. And people remember that. People will remember you if your band or you as an artist, solo artist, depending on what it is. People will remember you if you're awesome, but people will really remember you if you handle your business and you handle it well and you come off as a really true professional.
Yeah, and which goes back to that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the music that you write or the way that you play. Now, there is a bigger picture here, and I think being professional or trying to have that mindset of being a professional leads itself to being able to see more of the bigger picture. So not only do you conduct yourself in a certain manner, but then what you're delivering on should be of a certain level as well. Now again, you don't have to be the best band, the best singer, whatever, but professionalism is sometimes being consistent. Consistency means they can rely on you. And a lot of people nowadays, like in the last 20 years, a lot of things that built this country and what our parents and grandparents did to make ends meet during the Depression and World War I, World War II, the turmoil of the civil rights movement here in this country, all that stuff, sometimes they just kind of chinned down and powered through and tried to stay as consistent as they could. And then nowadays, consistent is, routine, it's boring, it's just, there's nothing exciting about it. But listen, slow and steady sometimes wins a race, right? You may not have your name in a marquee, but at the end of the day, if you can sleep well and don't have to look over your shoulder, to me, that's quality, right? That's a quality living.
not to throw this out there, but I think you and I are two guys that are proof of that. Slow and steady wins the race. You and I have had our careers. We ebb and flowed through our entire career, but we have literally stayed at a steady pace. And because of that, we've been able to do some really, really great things. And I think you and I, and I'll speak for us, that right there is proof of that. Our slow and steady is won the race, because you and I both have been doing this for a long time, and we still continue to do it. And we still continue to be successful, at different levels.
I mean, well, nowadays I can't go much faster than what I'm doing now, and I think I'm trying, but it's tough sometimes. But I know what you're saying. So that's, to me, consistency is a level of professionalism. Like if you want a contractor to work on your home, you want somebody who is consistent in the quality that they're building. Not that in 1 year they were great and the next year they had more lawsuits than they could. That means the year before nobody caught them. Right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you know what I mean? I don't know. And we've had those here in this area. So over the years, you know what I mean? But that consistency is looking at the bigger picture and say, how can I pull all this together? Sometimes we start reaching for things because this will put us in the next level. Listen, I've been there. And as a quick disclaimer, though I'm saying all this, I'll be the first one to tell you that I've made every mistake and then some, not just once, not even just twice, sometimes more than 3 times, because I think, I could do it better this time, and whatever the case may be. And it's just the same thing, right? And that's, I know that's the definition of insanity, but it's actually the definition of stupidity. But, it takes time to learn those things. You got to go through it. But there are things that I did go back on and say, I reassessed what I did and go, I'm going to try this again. But, and I learned from it because I started seeing the big picture. And I wanted to get consistent at it. There are things I wanted to learn. And sometimes you got to take a couple shots, fall a couple times, or a lot, and then figure it out, right? Which then goes to bring up the point, you got to know what your strengths are, and you got to know what your weaknesses are. Now, normally I don't say weaknesses. I usually say the things that aren't so strong. But I'm going to get right to the point. You got to know what your strengths are. You got to know what your weaknesses are. And everybody has them. And I don't care who you are and what level you are at. Everybody has them. Real good professionals will know how to work around their weaknesses by bringing people on board that can do the jobs. The CEO of a company is not necessarily always the guy who's writing code for it. Though he may have a little knowledge of it, he may not have the accuracy, the speed, and the depth. So he brings in guys to write code. Perfect example of that is Bill Gates. He surrounded himself with brilliant minds, people that could get the work done. He was a facilitator of those brilliant minds. Not to say that he wasn't a brilliant mind either. Steve Jobs, same thing. And people can argue all that stuff, and you probably could. I'm using them as their modern day examples of people that were able to take a small idea and blow it up. And there'll be people on both sides that will go, neither of those guys had the know-how by themselves, to make this thing happen if it wasn't for a collection of or a group of people around them. And you're probably right, but that's what makes a corporation. That's what makes a company successful.
Yeah, but you could also look at it if you take those guys and you go, well, they weren't successful without these other people, but those are the guys that put these people in place for him to succeed.
Right, and I agree with you. You're absolutely right.
So obviously you have to be smart enough to know what people are going to put you in the place that you want to be.
Right. Well, the example then is that they seen the bigger picture.
Right.
They knew what the strengths and weaknesses were of what they could offer, and they were smart enough to know, with confidence, not ego and cockiness, to bring in the people or do the things that are going to make everyone excel. And that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that they're not. I mean, hell, they're a lot smarter than I am. They didn't. Neither of them had to do a podcast.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
Once you're seeing the bigger picture and you're putting all that together and you're not afraid to keep learning and take this information in. I'll give you another example. Anthony Robbins. Everybody knows him, Unleash the Giant Within and all that kind of stuff. He interviews people who are successful in their realm, right? In their niche, in their profession, whatever it is. And this is a guy who's got, like 65 companies, and he makes a lot of money, and he goes around, and he's worked with some of the heads of state and stars, both in the music industry and the movie industry, and heads of companies and, whatever. And he's been there as their personal guide or guru or whatever, to help bring out the better of them. But he's done that for himself as well by getting connected with people and learning about what made them tick, how did they achieve what they did, the mindset, the emotion, the spiritual belief and all that stuff. And he would take all that in and put it into what he was doing as well. So he was smart enough to know that he didn't know everything.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife that now. I says, I don't know anything, but what I do know is I don't know anything. And because of that, I'm usually safe. So, after 30 some years, you can kind of use little things like that to get out of stuff. You're right. I don't know anything. That's what I've learned. I don't know anything. You're absolutely right. I think being a professional is once you're in the mix, you're learning as you go. You're learning on the fly. And like you had said earlier, like you got to be ready for this stuff. It's Murphy's Law in this business. Oh my God, is it Murphy's Law?
Yep, 100%.
You could have a signed contract and there's still going to be brown M&Ms in there. No matter what. It just because people don't care, people don't follow through, people don't read the fine print, people don't take the time.
Yeah.
It's great, but does that mean just because they're doing it, Mick, does that mean all your friends are jumping off the bridge? Are you going to jump off too? No, Mom! Because I don't know anything.
And that's what I know.
And that's exactly what I know.
I like to think that being a professional, or what constitutes as a professional, I like to think that it's common sense, but it's not, because some of it is.
Yeah, some of it, I agree with you. Some of it
matters, like you had said earlier, it matters. But I think being a professional, I think really like you had said, and to bring that point home is you really learn as you go. You're not going to know it all right off the bat, but you just have to use your best judgment. And if you have proper manners, that judgment sometimes comes easy, but you also have to look out for yourself too, because you don't want to be walked all over either. So there's going to come times where you have to, do you go in or do you play devil's advocate, or it's really just a learning experience. You kind of learn it as you go and hope you made the right decision. And if you don't make the right decision and it blows up in your face, and, you fix it next time, and you could always apologize for it, right?
That's true. Look, and they still say this. Whatever you did, if you did it for an hour a day for 5 years every day, at the end of that 5 years, you'd be a professional.
Right.
And again, that's if you're diligent at what you're doing. Like your practice time, your training time, your learning education time was actually put to good use. Not just you show up, you stand there. Because you could go to the gym 1 hour every day for 5 days and still be no different in 5 years if you just go and stand there. Right? Yeah. But it would be almost impossible if you were really putting in the time, the effort, right? An hour a day, 7 days a week for 5 years, that your body wouldn't transform. And what happens during those 5 years, and this is going to hold true with anything that you do, is that you keep hitting different levels, different plateaus. So things have to change. You want to stay consistent, but now you have to work on the next level. You have to get more education. You have to get more knowledge. You may have to add exercises. You may have to take exercises away. You may have to try different things, different routines. And this is being a professional. Like, what it is today is not what it's going to be 2 years from now. What it is today is not what it was 2 years ago. Are there some basics that are the same? Yes. I get it. Absolutely. That's working in your box, knowing it so well that you can move that box around. This idea, it's always baffled me. Think outside the box. To me, I understand what the concept is go for something different. Go for something new, something refreshing, so you're not repeating the same old thing. I think that's how it originally started with that saying. But then it got to a point where everybody was saying it all the time, that people were just dropping the box that they had and went off to someplace else. And then after that got boring, they dropped that box and so on. I always looked at it like this. That box is like a toolbox for a contractor. Everything that you need to do your job is in that box.
Yeah.
Okay? Every so often, you may have to buy a new tool for a different job that you haven't done. You get that tool, you learn how to do that tool, you put it in your box. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to use that tool all the time, only when those jobs require that tool. There's also going to be in that box some tools that you got to upgrade, replace. That could be band members, that could be how you do certain things in your writing. That could be, maybe I need to upgrade how I talk to people. Maybe I need to replace what it is I'm doing now with something a little different. But still, everything's in that box. And then I can take that box and do this job and that job and this job. And what happens? I become skilled, maybe highly skilled in whatever it is I'm doing. I slowly become a professional, right? Because it used to be apprentice, journeyman, master, right? And a lot of different things.
Right.
Like apprentices, you spend, I don't know, it could be anywhere from 6 months to several years training under someone, right? You're learning because there wasn't necessarily always a school that you could go to, right? So you learned it on the job. You were the guy, you started out one way, whenever. And then you were a journeyman. That means you were either on your own or you went around to different masters at a time, right? And just picking up different things and stuff like that. And then the thing is someday you became the master because you were around long enough. And the masters that were your masters are now gone. Bye-bye, retired or dead. Yeah. And now you just move up because it's the old last man standing thing. But you're only going to get that far is if you stayed consistent with whatever it is you were doing. You're not going to achieve a master type. You didn't give it to yourself. You didn't go, now I am the master. You know what I mean? It's like that. What was that? That disco dragon thing in the 80s? You know what I mean? It was I forget. Vanity was in it. And the guy was like Bruce Lee, but he wasn't. Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Anyway.
I can't think of the name of the
I can't remember what it was. I'm sure somebody's saying, oh, yeah, I know what that is. One of those bad movies. But anyway, my point here is you became the master because you continued to do it. And you grew over time and got better and better. The people that didn't, well, they didn't go the long haul. And you've seen it. Yeah. You've been around long enough. Right, your beard shows it that you've been around long enough. That how many bands have you seen come and go? How many guys that don't play anymore, or just like a couple episodes ago, they're still talking about it but just haven't done it. You know what I mean?
And bro, like I've been around. You and I have been around so long that now I can look at a band and watch how they do things and go, they're not gonna last. I can see it just by the way they act, by the way they talk, by the things they do. Sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with the music. It's all about the personnel in the band. And sometimes I can look at a band and go, they're not going to last very long.
I know. You were just telling me earlier, you can tell by the way someone puts a post out on Facebook.
100%. That is 100%.
So, listen. So, I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, and I've said this before on the podcast, I took some time off. I had to mentally just kind of disconnect, spiritually disconnect, because I had gotten so wrapped up into it that it was affecting other parts of my life and some health even. And I know that sounds crazy, but when I came back, I needed it. I said, you know what, I'm not doing what it is that I want to do and how I want to do it. I need to reassess, and really taking a step back sometimes is the way to do it. If you're getting to a point where you're getting completely lost, and that was a number of years ago, and I was there. But I got confident and more educated in my absence, so to speak, so that I knew, and like we talked about in the last episode, about having a plan, getting there, doing it. I had a plan. I knew exactly what I wanted to achieve, and I hit the ground running. That break was a positive for me. I just unplugged for a little bit, but I didn't completely, disappear. Does that make sense? So sometimes like if you feel that you have that ability to be the professional that you want it to be, but it isn't necessarily happening. And it could be not happening for a lot of different reasons. It could be the way you're approaching it, right? It could be the people you're with. It could be maybe you just don't have enough information yet. Maybe you're not that great of a player, or you're not that great of a songwriter. You know, like there was a time where I wanted to change my guitar style because I was like, I'm terrible at this. This is bad. Like, I need to do something. And there's only so much the distortion's going to hide. You know what I mean? And I'll be the first ones to tell you. Like, you know, I got to take those 3 chords and maybe add 2 more to them. I think I can learn 2 more chords, right? Let me add something here. You know, and like I've always said, like, I wanted to be a songwriter, not really a guitar player per se. Because I started out on drums, and I was trying to write songs on drums, and it was hard. And I'd bring my, you know, as a little kid, I'd say, "Mom, come down, listen to this." And I got this song going with these drums, and she would look at me and go, "I don't get it." And I'm like, that should have been my first sign, but it wasn't. And I had to hear it a little bit more, right? So the guitar gave me that vehicle. When I realized, like, the vehicle to start working towards being a better songwriter. In my adulthood, I realized I got to get better at this if I really want to do this. I got to get better at it. And for me to do that, I got to get better, a little better at playing this guitar. Like, I was getting away with it for a number of years. But then I said, for me to do the type of things that I want to do or write, I got to get better. And that was when I stepped away, I spent time learning other types of styles. Not that I've ever really accomplished being, you know, whatever, but it helped me look at what it is that I wanted to do. And to me, that is seeing the bigger picture, understanding the strengths, knowing what my weaknesses are, and putting all that together so that I can, at some point, deliver consistency. And I'm still working at that. I want to deliver consistency. I think it's a huge thing. Not so much that I'm forsaking the quality of the stuff that I want to deliver, but I think it's giving me a better mindset that I'm not just going to settle for whatever.
Yeah.
And I think think there, especially in today's market, today's industry, like, there's a need to just keep getting stuff out there because you're constantly lost. And that's some of the new model. They just keep firing stuff out there, firing as much stuff out there. I mean, recently, David Coverdale said there are no guitar heroes in today's music industry. Not like the old days, right?
Not like the old days,
And people would chime in and go, well, that's because nobody's good enough, or he's absolutely right, and this, that, and the other thing. Maybe, I don't know, you know? I mean, you're going to have people resonate with people that, you know, just like some people like movies that you would go, I can't believe somebody actually likes that movie. But people do. So we keep comparing it to a time and era which doesn't exist anymore. It only exists in either some people's faded memories, clouded memories, you know, disoriented memories, or it exists on vinyl. Yeah. And in some nostalgia type of TV show that somebody watched. But it was probably no different than it is today. People were saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
As rock and hard rock and heavy metal were starting to come, you know, like, oh, these aren't the Frank Sinatras and Dean Martins and Bing Crosby of our day. You know what I mean? These guys aren't Quincy Jones and Duke Ellington and so on and so forth. So you're going to get the same stuff over and over again. Now you're getting guys that go, well, these aren't, you know, this isn't Led Zeppelin and this isn't so and so. And a lot of that you're hearing is from all the old guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who are on their way out and need sound bites to keep their catalog moving. Get it? Totally get it. To say that, it's just that, and we talked about this before, because I think it was one of our episodes last year, rock isn't dead. It's just a different rock.
It's different. Yeah, that's right.
It's just different. That's all it is. It's different. And are there heroes in there? Yeah, maybe, but not like there were, because now there's just so many bands.
Yeah, and music's ingested differently now, too.
Yeah, and it truly is now worldwide. Like, we are privy to artists who are international, where in the 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s and 80s, you know, listen, when Gorky Park came over, like, that was a big deal, but they didn't really go that far.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, when in the metal thing, like, what kept them going a little longer than probably was the fact that they were a Russian band. coming
Yeah.
over while we were still kind of like, under the Iron Curtain, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was
Yeah.
a lot of that. I mean, I should say by the 80s, we were familiar with a lot of German metal bands and British
Yes.
metal bands,
Yes.
because we had that. But my point is now you can find some band somewhere in the Middle East or in the mountains of China, and you could download their stuff and you could be a huge super fan.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we constitute that? So that's what I'm saying. So I know we kind of slipped off the professionalism thing, but just because someone says there isn't doesn't mean that we shouldn't act that way. Right? Oh, there's no good band. So if we all take that to heart and we're not good bands, does that mean we all act like animals?
Right.
Like we don't take what we do seriously because guys like Gene Simmons or David Coverdale or whoever else doesn't feel that we're of the same caliber as these guys. Well, that's, to me, you know what that is. That's BS.
Yo, 100%.
Right?
100%.
We have to have our own confidence, and whatever it is that you're going to do, whatever level you decide to do it in, you do it the best you can, just like we've always said. And if you make that decision, in my thinking, constitutes being a professional. Because you're thinking somewhere else, bigger picture down the line. And if you're looking at bigger picture, go back to what you said, you're taking it all in. Not only yourself, and of course, listen, you are the center focus, your band. You can't forsake something, for your end. But you are taking into consideration this band and that band, the venue, the sound person. You want to get what you want to get out of it, but you'll find that you'll get a lot more if you give at the same time. Really, that is the definition of community. And if we want the scenes to grow, and everybody talks about that you got to do the scene, and everybody thinks that just showing up to a show is just enough for the scene. It's really not. If you're an artist, you really can't afford to go to every single show, or you're not focusing on what you're doing. But you can help the scene by being the best that you can be, being as professional as you can be, and offering the people that you work with and the people that come see you, whether they come see you directly or they're finding you for the first time, you give them the best that you can be, and that's where we start. And that's where we go.
Yeah. Yep.
You got anything else you want to add?
No, man. No. Not. I think we pretty much covered it.
Oh, yeah, we covered it. We covered it hard, and we covered it heavy. I'm pulling up my pants even higher now. Because I didn't bring my rubber waders. You know what I'm saying? Well, if you like that, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Don't be afraid to step into the cosmic verse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is The Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.